Hey everybody, it's me, Gregory Mannarino, back for this special, seriously, I want to cover a lot of stuff with you, post-market wrap-up on this Wednesday, October 17th, 2018. What I want to do here with this video, again, I have a couple of topics I want to talk about, is put a perspective on what's going on here in the market, how it's being played, that's a big one, and some new developments that are going on, like right in our faces. It's so true. Let's start off with this, because it's really incredible, and sometimes I seriously scare myself. If you recall, last week we had this big sell-off in the market. 800 points on one day, followed by another 500 and something point drop. All of a sudden, I spoke about this, so I know a lot of you out here are going to remember me saying this. Not only did I speak about it, but I posted on every single one of my social networks about what I'm going to tell you. I said, and it's always the same story, that they're going to float some kind of story out there to try to stop the bleeding. Well, what happened? Let's remember, we had heard that there was going to be some kind of a meeting regarding a trade talks between President Trump and China, and all of a sudden, the bleeding in the stock market stopped. I came out here and I said to everybody this was a fake story, because we've seen it before. I watch these markets every day. I think about them 24/7, so I know how they work. We know what they're going to do before they do it. So again, I said this was going to happen. The story came out that there was going to be there was this trade talk. I mean, this is really a big thing for these markets right now. The bleeding did stop. The story was floated out there, and now today it is proven that it was a lie. It was fake. Now let's talk about how the markets, just like I said, it was fake. Let's talk about how the market reacted to that. If you remember in the video that I did this morning, I explained to you that stocks were down, not by much. Stocks were down a little bit, right up until the announcement came out. So stocks were kind of, hovering a little lower. Then all of a sudden, China said, hold on a minute. There are no trade talks here in the works. So again, 100% proof that this story was fake. And what happened? Boom! Stocks went down the rat hole. Dow Jones Industrial Average was down about 300 points right off of that. Again, understand, you have to believe me on this if you don't already. Every word that comes out of a politician's mouth is fake, and it's to achieve an end. Whether it's true or not, it doesn't matter. They're trying to plug up holes here in the stock market that is 100% absolutely fake. And I want to talk more about that as well. So again, story was proven to be fake news. I wonder why President Trump isn't talking about that. I'm not looking to beat up on the president, but this was his story. Okay, proven to be fake, just to prop up stocks. Well, like I said, when this news came out, stocks came down. Then what happened? All of a sudden, the market kind of started getting bought up again, actually went positive. I was making jokes about this all day long on Twitter and Facebook. I was saying, watch the market go positive. Well, it did. Market ended up going positive. Then, this is beautiful. Then we get the Fed minutes. Fed minutes come out with in my opinion, a hawkish sounding Fed, despite the rhetoric from President Trump explaining, and it doesn't have to be President Trump, it could be Greg Mannarino. Whenever I refer to that, pretend that I'm sitting in the White House, because some of you get so upset about when I say this. I'm just telling you the facts. I don't care who's in that White House, you know that. But this is what he said. He's been beating up on the Fed, talking about how they should not be raising rates. President Trump is well aware, he's a very smart man, I will give him that the market is 100% addicted. And no, it's even more than that. It's on an overdose of the mainline quantitative easing, easy money, whatever you want to talk about, suppress interest rates now for an entire decade. He understands that if the Fed normalizes, there's going to be a price to pay. The market will, again, come off of its high. Now, again, the story has been for years from everybody, all the professionals, that if rates would rise for the right reasons, like a booming economy or full employment like we have now, that would be a great thing, and stocks would rise along with it. It was one of the biggest lies that have ever been shoved down the throats of the people in the entire world. It's the truth. Nobody with even a fraction of one functioning brain cell would believe that this is true. This is literally, there's no difference between an addict, and I mean a hardcore drug addict, and the stock market and housing markets. Not just that, the CEOs of these corporations here are absolutely addicted to the drug as well. Again, please do your own research about what I'm going to say, because I know I'm going to get heat for it. If Greg Mannarino were president right now, during the same period that President Trump is, you would find that CEOs of the corporations have gotten richer in a shorter period of time than ever in history. They've never seen anything like this before. CEOs are the happiest they have ever been in the shortest amount of time if Greg Mannarino was sitting in office in place of President Trump. Okay, I'm going to use myself because I'm sick and tired of getting the flack. Do your own research if you don't believe this is true. Okay, it's pretty easy to see how this has played out. But if you want to use me in place of President Trump because it offends you, then do that. I can take it. It's the truth. So here's the new catchphrase. Are you sitting down? Please sit down for this. Now the Federal Reserve, instead of, again, understanding, and then this, we all know this is true. Federal Reserve easy money now for an entire decade. That Greg Mannarino, as President of the United States, wants to keep going here by not allowing the Fed to raise rates, will keep the easy money going into this market. It's a drug to keep the market suspended, enriching the CEOs, causing distortions in the market to get even larger. But again, it's the Federal Reserve, their easy money policy, colluding with our policymakers, the Wall Street banks, United States of corporate America, to prop this all up. This is the Federal Reserve that has inflated this bubble along with everyone that I just said. Greg Mannarino, if he were President of the United States, would be well aware of this right now, just as our current president is. Uh-oh, I said it. But now, sit down. The catchphrase from the mainstream, the COD, is a hostile Fed. A hostile Fed, or hostile, however you say that word. A hostile Fed? We have never seen anything like this in the history of humanity, and I am not making this up. And it's not just the Fed. Again, they want to keep you in a box. They want you to believe, again, I guess Greg Mannarino, if you're President of the United States, wants you to believe that it's just the Fed. It's the Fed that's doing this, that right now has inflated the stock market bubble. Absolutely not. You see, because if you were allowed to understand that it's every single other world leader colluding with their central bank, has allowed these bubbles to manifest themselves. That's the truth. So this talk, I mean, seriously, when I heard the term, this is the first time I heard of it today, a hostile Fed, I literally almost, you see this window? I almost did a backflip out this window here. It's incredible, it really is. Let's talk about a couple of other things today that are kind of disturbing, and I did cover this earlier with regard to economic news. Housing starts falling off of a cliff. This is huge. Again, we're seeing cracks in the housing bubble. This is another reason why they want to keep the easy money going. Not just to enrich the CEOs of the corporations, not just to keep the stock market in a bubble, one and the same, keeping these CEOs rich, but to not allow the market to achieve a fair value. All right, this is not real. You've known this. If you followed my blog, you are an absolute top of the line expert when it comes to understanding the environment we are in. That is the truth here. But again, housing starts falling off of a cliff. Mortgage applications falling to a almost 2-decade low. Now we found out today that, again, Greg Mannarino, being president of the United States, said that we have to stop spending like this. This was our president, obviously. He wants to cut back on spending. Now, this was the main theme why one of the reasons why I voted for President Trump. During the campaign, he explained in detail how debts and deficits were out of control. He promised to fix that, but it's not his fault. It is not his fault. Believe me, I understand that. That's the environment we are in. If Greg Mannarino were president of the United States, would I have campaigned on something like that? Probably. I would have, admittedly. But I don't know. I think maybe at least I would have tried to do something about it, because debts and deficits continue to explode to the upside. Now, our president said, because of this reason, this was today, look it up, just Google this, that he wants to cut back on spending because debts and deficits are getting out of control. This is the same narrative that it's not just Greg Mannarino, if he was sitting in the White House, not just President Trump, who is in the White House, but every single other president. It's the same narrative over and over again. Oh, debts and deficits are out of control. We got to cut spending. It never happens. And I've been explaining to all of you forever now that debts and deficits will continue to explode to the upside. It's outrageous. And, of course, as we will continue to see debts and deficits explode to the upside, regardless of what Greg Mannarino, as president today, said. But it's a very sad state of affairs. Now, let me go on a little further here. I know this is getting long, but it's so important to understand this. Again, the environment we are in are in a multiple bubble environment, and every single bubble is dependent on the next one. So there's going to be, in my opinion, if the Federal Reserve remains on their path, again, the Fed minutes today seem hawkish to me, which means the Fed is going to, they're going to probably raise rates. I don't know if they're going to raise rates again this year, I'll be honest with you. When we get closer, I will reevaluate that. Again, keep in mind, this guy, not the president, this guy, has been wrong one time. One time in every year, all of the years since the Fed has been talking about raising rates. Nobody on Wall Street, mainstream media, or otherwise has a better record than me with regard to calling the Federal Reserve. This is a fact. It's documented. And every one of you who follows my blog knows this is true. So I think I know what I'm talking about when it comes to reading the Federal Reserve, understanding the environment that we are in. It's very simple. It's all cause and effect. You know that. So here's the situation. Multiple bubbles are existing all over the place. Either we ram up against this wall at 1,000 miles an hour, I don't know, Mach whatever, or the Federal Reserve lets a little air out of the bubble periodically. Stocks will suffer. Housing will suffer. Either way, however you want to look at it, there's going to be some pain. Either we're going to get a wallop of, again, Mach speed coming to a standstill, in a blink of an eye, which would potentially be, in my opinion, a worst case scenario. Credit freeze, no cash available, transactions will stop. We'll end up in a Great Depression. There's no doubt about it. As a matter of fact, the IMF warned about that. I believe it was today, and I even posted a link to it, talking about a complete meltdown of the system. Or we allow the Federal Reserve to let air out here. Don't you want to see this market normalize? All I want is a normal market. I don't want this easy money anymore. It's way, way, way out of control. And with new catchphrases like a hostile Fed, you're going to hear more of this. As a matter of fact, it's probably going to be adopted by more and more people. The Fed has not been hostile. The Federal Reserve has been however you want, let me. There's two perspectives on this. Either they have been the best friend of this stock market since the meltdown of 2008. They have also allowed people's portfolios to get very large, housing prices to inflate, but it's not real. It's an environment of distortions. You all know that. So I have no doubt that as the Fed tries to normalize here, we're going to see some tantrums here in the market. The market doesn't like it. Housing is not going to like it. But if we let out a little air, a little bit at a time, maybe we can stop a multiple Mach speed ram into the wall, which would end up in a worst case scenario. It's that simple. It really is. I don't know about you, but I find it very disturbing how Greg Mannarino, sitting in that White House over there, wants to keep the easy money going here. Why? To keep the stock market inflated, to keep enriching the banks, to keep enriching the CEOs, to not allow this market to normalize. It's unbelievable. And I think, for anybody to call the Federal Reserve hostile has got to be the most dumbed down moron who has ever walked the face of the earth, or their motive is pretty simple. Let's keep these distortions going so that we can get richer here off the back of easy money from here to eternity. What do you think? I mean, it's really the truth. It's, out of control. So again, and today was a big day here. There's no doubt about it. We got a clarification and, a vindication for myself, truly, how that news was absolutely fake. How they floated out that story last week, when the market was bleeding off to try to stop the bleeding. I really kind of thought that China was going to come out and try to contradict that. I'm surprised it took about 6 or 7 days for that to happen. I believe that story came out on the 11th. What is today's date? It's the 17th. I just said that. So, but look, the truth always wins. The truth always comes out. You can't fight it. You can't hide from it. It's just is what it is. And truth will be the deciding factor in this market. Whether or not the market is allowed to correct, or easy money is going to continue pouring in here at the behest of Greg Mannarino sitting in the White House, or anybody else. This is just, it's out of control. It really is. All right, look, with that said, I'm going to let you all go. Please, if this video has been important, if I covered anything here that people should hear, get it out there. Let people hear it. Just share it. It's so simple. And I'm counting on you. If you are part of my team, I am counting on you to share this stuff. Always. See you in the morning.